fake Vancouver that occurs, and the response to that is look around you on any given day in Vancouver, and yes, there is a fake Vancouver, but the real Vancouver writer series started during the Olympics in 2010, and we have some friends of ours here tonight who participated in that, and it's really nice to see you guys here. Thank you for being here. It started out as a response to what we perceived to be a lack of literary programming during the Olympics. And so we decided that what we would do is try and self-organize and send a message out to all of our friends in the literary community and ask them if they would donate their time and come down and show the rest of the world what Vancouver writing and literature is all about. And we were very lucky that we had a huge response. We had 44 writers over 4 weeks, essentially 11 writers per night at the old W2 space down at the Peril Gallery on Hastings Street. And so for the past 3 years, we have kind of self-organized and volunteered to create this series, which has continued to this day. We have had, if numbers matter, I think 97 writers from Vancouver and as far away as Charlottetown. We have some friends here tonight from Ottawa, Saskatoon, Toronto, Montreal. So we try and be an inclusive and open series, and we always like to encourage writers who are brand new, who are just publishing for the first time, to stand up on stage with their peers and perhaps even every once in a while some of their idols, or the people whom they really respect as professional writers. So, thank you for coming. Now, we have an interesting night tonight because, not just because we have some amazing writers, but we also have our own vintage of wine. It's called Real Vancouver Red, and it's a Cabernet Sauvignon, made from a bladder of some sort of concoction. A bladder. It comes full circle. It's true, yeah. And so not only is this vintage brand new, but it also commemorates the evening because all of the writers who are here are listed on the label. So should you be so inclined to remember why you drink, you can just look and like, yes, Stephen Collis. That's why I drink. And so these, because we're good citizens, we're not allowed to sell them, but they are available in exchange for a donation at the back.
Perfect.
Yes, that's right. We can't sell them, but you can donate to us, and we'll give them to you. So we also have wine pairings to go with each writer, and so it's important that you. It's important when you're enjoying the Real Vancouver Red that you know the context. So Stephen Collis will be our first reader tonight, and his book is To the Barricades, and nothing will enhance the natural tannin in Stephen Collis's work like the delicate perfumes, soft spice, and complex freshness of a fine Cab Sauv. It's a subtle wine with mouth-smacking appeal. Take that as you will. Best served midway through the book. Okay. Stephen Collis is the author of 5 books of poetry, including the Dorothy Livesey Poetry Prize-winning On the Material from Talon in 2010, and 3 parts of the ongoing Barricades project, An Archive from New Star in 2005, The Commons from Talon in 2008, and the forthcoming, or as we have already here, sorry, this is what happens when people write them.
I need to edit that.
Yeah, Daniel.
Tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, get that back. And an activist and social critic, his writing on the Occupy movement is collected in Dispatches from the Occupation from Talon as well. And I really wanted to start off with Stephen tonight because Stephen was part of Occupy Vancouver, which a huge advocate and an important person within that movement. And with where we started with Real Vancouver was an organization called W2, which is no longer with us, sadly. And it's important that we maintain our ties to that organization and to where we started. And so it seems natural that Stephen will be our first reader tonight. So come on up, Stephen. Midway through the poem.
Good evening. Thank you very much. It was Sean. It was wonderful
introduction, I've always wanted a wine description. You didn't say big shaggy nose or something like that, which is good, or speak of the nose of this wine anyways.
That'll be in the morning.
That'll be in the morning. Exactly. So yeah, this is wonderful to be here. Thank you, Project Space and Real Vancouver Writers and all that stuff, and everyone for coming out tonight. And the other writers from all over the place. It's great to read with you all. I'll also begin by acknowledging our presence tonight on unceded Coast Salish territories as well, and thank the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples for hosting us. Hosting being a very polite word for it. But if we could get to hosting, we'd get somewhere maybe. I'm going to read a found poem, although I guess these days to be cool you'd have to call it a conceptual poem, even though I think that's mostly bullshit. But I'm going to read some bullshit. So I was working on my CV, because once in a while I never look at my CV, and it's like way years and years out of date, and so I thought, okay, and I'm getting pressure from my colleagues to stop handing in such a shitty CV and actually put everything on there, so I've been actually trying to do that. And so I was looking for odd things that I've lost track of, and I found a recording of a time I was on CBC radio on, BC Almanac, during the Occupy protests, and I was actually on my phone from a demonstration where we were trying to shut down the Port of Vancouver in December of 2011, I guess, and I did this interview. Anyway, so there's like a sound file, but there was also this text there that was called a raw machine transcript of my time. So to start off, the guy interviews me, then they have callers call in, they get me to respond with all the bullshit the callers are saying. So this is word for word. I'm only going to read like the first teeny little bit of it, half a page of it, because you can't really read it, but it goes on for many pages like this. I'm not quite sure what a raw machine transcript is, but I don't know if it's a very reliable thing.
Vegan.
It's what?
It's vegan.
It's vegan. It's a vegan machine for apparently recording maybe things I said and maybe things a bunch of other things we're saying. I'm not quite sure what's going on. With us right now is Stephen Coliseum, is with Occupied Vancouver at the rally right now. Welcome to Resume and Active, and what's happening right now where you are, or orders start gathering crowd before arriving in Hartford. The drive there is so much stress during the organ writing tradition, and mobilize to where what would be plenty to do but will share their personal blog for your purists, or where we are going to march, and you hope to stop traffic when you get there. What's the plan for think I go to word you used an interesting registration of God disrupts traffic? Is the right word that you've noted earlier about briefly describe the parking entrance. And what you see here, Vancouver, is a rolling temporary disruptions. What are you charging ports, just like 3, regarding on the refer them for service in organizing solidarity with our American brothers and sisters called for action in organizing solidarity, and down the coast on the lumen of the global movement is only a global movement if people in other countries work in solidarity and support with their compositions in other countries. So the solitary effort, secondly, the English kindergarten. Attempt to get job. The discussion of any talking in economic and colony going cold out here at yellow dildo ports. I'm reasonably certain I did not say yellow dildo ports on CBC radio. If anyone knows what the hell that is, I mean, I tried to find other things. Like I tried to Google like raw machine transcript. I don't find anything. I don't know what that is. Let it be what it is. You know what it is? Embrace it. Where are you? I heard your voice. I heard that otter from the back of the room. Okay. Slightly more seriously. What am I doing? Dear Common Occupy, what half-light goes collateral? Seams of the tents and tarps of being lit just dull morning red and blue. Music almost audible, cars, wet streets, and we are mud for forming shapes, plastic, which is to say bending, not breaking, a bite to place quickly on cops' sleeves. To the occupations, Because we have ideologically confined spaces, internet lies, shock not irons, fires, the infrastructure tent, food not bombs tent, media tent, tomorrow tent, we will build to the stars and horizons together. To the occupations, because they will helmet and baton and legislate the length of this land and media blackout, the silent, sweeping jail street jive, grabbing girls by their hair or just clubbing the aging protester as he rants and rails. To the occupations, not for lack of other employment, only the titled see entitlement, and idiots will ninjas to appear in their minds and would rather the easy hate of each other than the machinery of state and money eating them alive. To the occupations, because they are our barricades now, and we will not forget the ransom for profit, each debt and earth occupied already for centuries. At social and ecological thresholds, we're waking in our tents to shake the ground of mornings. You have to measure it in your hands, the velocity of the existing emancipating death wishes or protesters, their police escort just going out of sight to triangulate photo finishes like oil tankers or polyjuice potion drunk by executives transformed into citizens. Or the muddle, gone impossible, landscapes buffer of airbags myth where animals are skinned after breaking the windshield of ideology. That is a cut glass or thrown across the telescope. The premise is, can we jackknife or economic pearl and oyster clandestine and evading the murk of pipelines to kitimat these oily fossils, these hulls? Orthodox physics, the Devil's Club won't let, the riff won't chorus unction or ounce. Who weighs kilos anyway? The tar sands insists tomorrow's just crud in our contraptions. So hey you protest kids, velvet these undergrounds or moths crazy like bitumen rivers where a language has no word for the habit of candles, occupied squares, ontological in the nets of love. Now, that's part of a longer poem, which may or may not be somewhat characteristic of this book. So I've done my duty, I've done due diligence. Now write a poem that kind of, I'll finish with this poem that kind of sticks out as being a little bit different than what the rest of the book is like. But it seems a bit fitting maybe tonight. Here we are. I'm sure I've read on the night of an election before. I think it was an American election that was Barack Obama, 2008 maybe even, that was at a reading on election night where people were all hyped about that election, right? Because, you know, change. Little do we know. Anyhow, 4 more beers, exactly. So, you know, I election nights are always ambiguous. They can raise some hope, but we also know not much is going to change, quite possibly. Although I'm encouraged by the fact that the person who might be our next premier is married to a poet. And that can't be too bad a thing. I'm hoping. So anyway, this, you know, I often find myself in situations going, is this political? And I'm not sure. This is a poem a little bit about that kind of ambiguity, which seems fitting on a night like tonight. It's called Barricades Mystérieuses. It's got the pretentious title in the book too, which is a piece of music that Francois Couperin wrote. So mysterious barricades is what that means, and no one's sure if that reference to barricades in the title of this piece of music is anything political at all. It's pre-French Revolution, but it was post the first time barricades were thrown up in Parisian streets, so no one knows. I don't know what wind brought it here to douse candles found in other people's poetry, like references to figures from pop culture that make us laugh a little because they are awkward and embarrassed to be seen in the Baroque parlor of some sleepy pseudo-commodity of a poem, or so we are told and expect. But it was there just the same. Crescendo of Radiohead's Karma Police. The felt presence of my dead sister, Wordsworth-like, handing me the text of the perfect revolutionary poem which does not exist. This was my literal stage, a lyric brilliance you couldn't escape. I stepped out back to smoke, which I don't do. The sky was just like the sky. A car in reverse might speed sloppily away from, and that wind was still blowing. The fire was spreading new notes of another music, and I knew I didn't want to write poems like that anymore. In Dr. Strangelove, there's that colonel. Thought it was the water. Started shooting up his office. And Peter Sellers, playing more than one character, did not ride a bomb down over Russia or through a Texas night hot with executions. I tear down and rebuild the book 100 times in some badly lit garage. It doesn't matter. Art will always fail us. Our radical friends accidentally saying, Trotskyite organist, choose refusal. One after another, an opaque sky will open and barricades will only appear in streets I've never walked or driven down. I cough into the puppet on my hand, its face contorted behind dark sunglasses, a professor of only pretend politics. Peter Sellers pulls his arm back down into his wheelchair, struggling to control a gesture we recognize for a minute there with an uncomfortable laugh. Thank you very much.